Okay, we're going to talk about scatter plots. This should look a little familiar back from freshman year at Algebra 1. So let's take a look. All right, so definitions before we hop into examples. So for scatter plots, it's going to be a graph that shows the correlation between two variables. Okay, so we'll have a graph that has kind of plot or points plotted on it. Okay, our independent or explanatory variable is our x variable. Okay. I think explanatory has an x in it, so that's how I know it's the x variable. Okay. Our response is our y. Okay. Response or dependent is our y. So we can describe scatter plots in three ways using shape, direction, and strength. So for shape, it's the overall shape of the relationship. Okay. So first we can have a linear if they're kind of following a line. Okay. It doesn't have to be an exact line, but if we can tell it's being in a line, we call it linear. If it's a different shape that's not a line, like this one's a U kind of shape, we just call it non-linear. And if it's really doesn't even have a shape, we can call it unclear. Okay, those are our three choices. I would jot down these pictures on your notes. So go ahead and pause it and do that. All right, now when we go to describe by direction, we have two choices. We have positive, which we see it's going kind of uphill, and negative if our dots are going downhill. I drew in those lines to kind of help you see the way that it's going, but sometimes those lines won't be there. Might just be dots, but if it's going uphill, it's positive. Downhill, it's negative. That's the direction of the scatter plots. And now, strength is how closely the points follow form. So if you're saying it's linear, it'd be strong if they're all really darn close to following that line. Now, if you said it was linear, but all the points are kind of spread out, we would call that a weak positive linear. So it kind of tells you how closely those points are following the form or the shape. Now you can use describers with those, like if you want to say fairly strong or fairly weak, if it's kind of in between the two. So let's look at an example or two. All right, first I want to determine the independent and dependent variables. Remember, independent was our x variable, dependent was our y. Okay, we talked about that in the beginning slides. Now describe its shape, direction, and strength. So I'm going to go ahead and just put I for independent, since that was my x, and then my y is my dependent. Okay, now the shape, okay, I say that this kind of, a couple points are off, but for the most part, I would say that this is linear. Okay, direction, it's going up, so it's positive. There's a couple points off, but I'd say that it's fairly strong. So I'm going to go ahead and put strong. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the one on the right. Well, same thing, my weight is going to be my independent. My dependent, my y is miles per gallon. So I'm going to go ahead and put a D there. Our shape, sometimes drawing a line is pretty helpful. I'd say that not all those points hit the line, but for the most part, we can tell that it's kind of going in a shape or it's going towards a line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go linear. Direction, we know it's going downhill, so it's going to be negative. Okay, and my strength, I'd kind of even maybe put like, it's kind of weak. Some of the points are off. You could even say it's a little strong, but it's kind of in between. Just use your best judgment. So for this one, our birth month, that's going to be our independent. Our dependent is going to be the height. So our shape, it kind of just looks like a shotgun blast here. So we don't know what it is, so it's going to just be unclear. It doesn't really have a pattern. Direction, since it's unclear, we don't have a direction. So I'm going to put NA. The N got away from me. And strength, obviously it's all over the place, so we're going to go ahead and just put weak because it really doesn't follow a pattern. Now let's do this last one. Let me take a look. Shape, I'd say it's still kind of linear. It's not a great line, but we can kind of at least see that it's kind of going in line. The direction, I'd say it's positive. And the strength, it's kind of on the weaker side. A lot of the points are kind of all over the place. It doesn't fit. It doesn't really hold the form very well. So I'm gonna go ahead and put weak. So for these ones, we're definitely gonna give you a little bit of leeway on some of these answers, but for the most part, we'll give you graphs that you can really tell if it's strong or weak, or if it's linear or it's unclear. So just so you know, we'll give you a little bit of leeway, but you kind of need to be in the ballpark when we're doing these. Alright guys, so when we're going to create scatter plots, we'll actually have to make one by hand. Now, what we do first is look at your independent and dependent variables, so look at your table, and then you're going to have to decide what we want to do for our intervals, or what we want to go by for each of our tick marks. Okay, so looking at your table will help you with that. Then we'll label our axis and create a title, so you got to give it labels and a title, and then last but not least, we're going to plot each point on our data. Alright guys, so here's the table. Let's go ahead and take a look. So we're going to go ahead and make a scatter plot. So read this as an XY table. Calories is your X, fat is your Y. Okay. I like to go ahead and label my scatter plot first so I don't forget to do it. So calories are your X, or your independent. Your fat is going to be your Y, or your dependent. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and just give it a title. You can do something fun if you want, sometimes for them. I'm just going to do calories versus fat. So it tells me what my graph is about, or my scatter plot is about. Okay. Now, next thing, look at your points of your values. So for my x-axis, my highest is 262, my lowest is 80. Okay, so that spread, kind of a big spread. I'm going to go by 20s because it's kind of a big spread, but I notice that almost all of mine are pretty darn close to ending in a 0. So I'm going to go ahead and go by 20s. So I'm going to first make a little break in my graph on my x-axis, telling me that I'm actually going to start at a number not 0. So I'm going to start at 80. Okay. Now I'm going to go by 20s. So I have 100. Then I'm going to go ahead and not write that since I have a little bit of limited on space. So I'm going to go 120. So the next one's 140, 160, okay, 180, 200, 220, so 240, and then 260, 280. Okay. Now I have all those, and notice you have to go by the same each tick mark or each box when we do these. They have to be by the same. You can't jump around and just put all these numbers up here. We have to go ahead and make it uniform, okay, or consistent on our numbers. Now let's look at our y-axis. Okay, my lowest y looks like it's going to be this 2. My highest looks like 6.8. Okay, and notice we have decimals. I'm just going to go ahead and make another little break, and I'm going to start at going at 2. Okay. Then I'm just going to go by ones. So I'm going to go, actually I'm going to go by 0.5. So that would be 2.5, but I'm not going to write it, but I'll write that 3. So 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, and then we'll have 6.5, 7. That's okay to make it a little bit longer. Okay, so now once I have everything labeled like this, I can go ahead and start plotting my points. Okay, so my first point right here is this. My x is 262, my y is 6.3. So we're going to go ahead and plot that. Okay, I'm going to use red. So I'm going to go over to 262, which would be about right here somewhere. I'm going to go up 6.3. So it's going to be about right there. Okay. And sometimes it's helpful if you kind of just if we kind of come up and over, okay, using your fingers when we do these. No, it's kind of tougher on the iPad. Let's go ahead and do the next point. So we're going to do this next point. So I'll go over 140, up 2. Okay, next one's 150. So 150 would be about right here, and then I'm going to go up 3.5. Okay. 159 is going to be over a little bit, but same at the same point, so right about right there. Okay, 120 is 2.5, so right here. Okay, 140 is 3.5, so I'm going to go over 140 and go up 3.5, so about right there. Okay, 185, so I'm going to go over to about 180, 85 right there, up 6.8, so it's going to be about right there. Okay. I'm going to try to delete these 2 points right here just because you don't need them. They were kind of a mistake. Okay, much better. Alright, and then I was on 150, so 150 is right here, up 3. So about right there. And then 80 is going to be 3. And 80 is going to be 2.5. So I know it takes a little bit of time. But the big thing we're looking for is that you have your axes in your title of your graph. You go by the same number of each of your little tick marks, okay? And then plot your points. All right, go ahead and try your practice problems.